Good afternoon, everybody. I'm joined here today by Bella Watts, Emma Hurst, Michelle Tran, Badell Newton, and we're going to be talking about making an impact on campus and community. I just wanted to briefly speak about your journal, what the focus is, what your role is within your journal, and then one goal that you may have for it. Feel free to answer in whatever order you like.
My name is Badell Newton, and this is Ericka Overstreet. We're the editors of the Prism magazine, which is the literary magazine at Lynchburg University. So we basically focus on creative works from the students at Lynchburg. Um, so yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle, or not me, right? And I am currently the principal editor of Jolly, the Journal of Language and Literacy Education at the University of Georgia. It is a peer-review, open access, graduate student-run journal housed in the Department of Language and Literacy Education at the University of Georgia. And it got its start in 2004. And one goal for the journal as of now is we hope that it continues to be a space for advocacy and inclusivity in the field of language and literacy education as well for ESL learners.
Hi, my name is Bella, and I'm from Georgetown University, and I'm here representing the Georgetown University Undergraduate Law Review. I have been a part of the organization in an executive role for 4 years, but I am currently the principal managing editor of our publication. So, our publication engages with legal scholarship produced by undergraduates with the goal of providing diverse pieces that are intersectional with disciplines, as well as highlighting the intersections of law with politics, philosophy, and international relations and social justice. So I've really loved being a part of the journal that I've fortunately, been able to lead for a couple of years. And I think one goal that we have that we've had for a couple of years in the organization is to collaborate better with other institutions. Like I think every journal that we've attempted to collaborate with has had a lot of really positive aspects, and I'd love to, glean from their experience to amplify the work that we produce. I would also, want to create a more resilient community of people. We have a lot of people on this campus that are really interested in politics and law, and I think that we have such a wonderful opportunity to increase our engagement. But a lot of that comes down to just executive strategy and our willingness to, market our organization.
Hi everyone, my name is Emma Hurst. I'm from the University of Alabama and I'm the editor for Dewpoint magazine. And our focus is pretty much to encourage engagement with writing and publishing with anyone that's affiliated with UA. And so we publish poetry, prose, really any kind of critical work. And our goal for Dewpoint has been to just overall increase engagement with the magazine and work on development.
Thank you so much for those answers. So next up, I was wondering, in what ways do you see your journal making an impact on your campus and or your community? This can be in whatever way you see fit.
Would it be okay if I began?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So I think that something that I think the law review can do better at is making sure that we collaborate with a lot of other organizations that are legal focused or legal in nature, either across GC or within our university. Because there's a lot of them out there. We're also fortunately in the nation's capital, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity to bring in speakers, and that could also like be an instrument of creating community. Because if we, host good events, we can have people that want to attend the events, and just by extension, increase the membership of our organization. We haven't had problems with membership in the past, but I think that engagement has been lacking, especially because so much of the work that we do happens in the last bit of the spring, and that's when people are really stressed about their own academics. So I think that capitalizing on the resources that we have because of our geography and because of our campus community is really the first step in making our organization more public. But I'm very hopeful that like once I leave the university and other people take over the roles that I've had in the past, that we're going to be able to get a lot of that work done.
Totally agree. with it being the end of the semester and everyone's
Yeah.
right now. For me, I'm a first year PhD student as of now. So before I joined, the publication process was very daunting. Being in an academic journal run by graduate students, I feel like demystified the process. Where do I submit my papers? What is needed? What are the requirements? When do I submit it? What is the review process? It's like APA copying, editing. What is that? So these questions, I feel like when we are in a journal, as we all are answered while we're engaged and collaborating inside a community that's trying to figure everything out together. And of course, I said community, it also builds community because I feel like it is so much pressure to succeed individually at times. And so having this group, in a sense, you feel less isolated and more closer to your colleagues. So that's what I'm feeling that's making an impact on the campus and the community.
So, I think that when it comes to publishing for students, it can be really impactful for them to be able to kind of test the waters on their own work and whether or not they are interested in the publishing industry or even just like publishing their creative work, which is why I think the Prism has been a great outlet for students at Lynchburg because we had our Prism launch recently. And so we had students read their own creative work. And so they kind of got to share their work with their peers and also the staff of the department. And they could see whether or not like it was something they were comfortable with. It would give them like a new experience and it would make like an impact in the way that they felt as though they could communicate their ideas in a space that would be judgment free and would be more accessible than the publishing industry straight out. So I think that student publishing is important, that it makes things more accessible for students and they can share their voices without having to worry about any type of gatekeeping.
Yeah, I have a pretty similar take for Dewpoint. I feel like it's been a really like low stakes kind of entry point for students to just test the waters with publishing their work. And even though we are open to anybody just affiliated with the school, it doesn't have to be just undergraduate students. I think it has made a huge impact in terms of creating awareness about publishing and what it's like to submit to a literary journal. And so I think that's really helped just create awareness with the journal and with things like the English department.
You for that. I really appreciate the fact that you all are interested in making safe spaces for like the publisher community or just like your regular campus to get involved. I really appreciate that. We were just having a conversation today at GW about like the end of the semester and it being such like a rush and the students being in such a frenzy. So we definitely understand that as well. So leading on to that, I was wondering how you balance your personal work on the journal while you're a college student or like if you have a job, if you're involved in anything else on campus. I was wondering what that balance looks like for you.
I think that the way that we've tried to navigate it in the past and the journal, like the membership self-select. So like a lot of the people that end up wanting to do the journal are people that also want to do internships and want to have a lot of classes and want to have a lot of other organizations that they have commitments and responsibilities to. So I think that the way that we've tried to work around that is by having a lot of flexible deadlines, a lot of deadlines that are put like weeks or months before so people can plan ahead. But then we also like try to harness as many digital platforms as we can. Not as many, but like, streamline the ones that we do that people do like and, get a lot out of. But I would say that we de-emphasize in-person work because we know it's really difficult to like have everyone meet up at the same time. I think like once you reach the executive level or like if someone wants to like do something more administrative, it becomes a little bit more time consuming in person, whereas like editing is a lot of time as well, but it's, all done on your own time. So I think that being as forthcoming about the obligations as possible has been really beneficial to us, but also leveraging digital platforms like Slack. Because I think that when we've been able to let everyone in the know as early as possible, that's when we've seen the most amount of, I guess, success in meeting the deadlines, as well as quality of work.
Agree with that. So for the Prism, what we did was if people couldn't come to our regular reading meetings, we would send out a packet of the work and they could submit their feedback on their own time. And so we kept it with like a spreadsheet to keep track of the submissions and whether or not the student body really connected with it. And so that's kind of how we decided what goes into the Prism. It's very like peer led. And so when it comes to balancing work and student life, it was very flexible, which made it more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, so for Dewpoint, it's pretty much just me like running the entire thing and doing submissions. So I have to be pretty on top of just keeping to a set schedule for when I want to get submissions in and, when I want the publication to be out. And we are only digital right now. So I think that really helps with just keeping everything flexible where, if I can't make a certain deadline, it's not a huge problem with having to get it to print or something like that. So just kind of sticking to a schedule helps with the time management.
As for me, I think this is a great question. And the real honest answer is I can't. I don't balance. It's just there's no balance. Currently I'm working a full-time job and also a part-time job, and I'm also a full-time student. So a lot of things going on, right? I usually spend Sundays working on the journal. But then on Mondays we have class. So Jolly is a class that we have to physically be there for. And so I feel like Mondays is when we can regroup as a board and we can talk about last week and what happened and work in that allotted times. But for me, if there was a balance, I think I got this from my advisor. My advisor said, make at least one day for yourself. And I do. It's Saturdays. You guys should try too. Make at least one day because I do get worn out. And then also setting up boundaries for yourself is very important. Because I used to overwork myself when I first started as principal editor, answering emails on the weekends and even after 5 p.m. It will be 10 p.m. Somebody emails me and I'm like, I got to get to it. And so I think it's very important to find not a balance. It's not a full balance, but a way to function. At least that's how I'm functioning. So yeah.
Everybody has such different answers, and it's like just like your own personal levels of organization, which I really appreciate from the spreadsheets or like making a day for yourself. I really like everybody has such a different journal and such a different way of doing it, especially you, Emma, for it to be basically just you running it. I feel like you have such a great like great setup. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Focusing on how different your journals are as well. I was wondering, since we're all focusing on different things, I was wondering how, like, what message is important for you to portray through your own individual journals? Like, what are you trying to get out to your consumers?
Right. So for Prism, I think this year we really focused on authenticity. We wanted to see more personal stories. And even if you created something like, say, you created a fiction work for the literary magazine, we wanted to see how your own cultural voice speaks through that work. And so we have things like travel journals in here. We have people's photography, different art they've made. So the Prism this year has been very personal and very focused on individual voice and cultural voice.
I think that kind of in similar to the previous answers I've given, I think that we try to work within the we try to capitalize on the culture that we have in our institution and really bring that to our guiding principles of the journal and then also what ends up being produced, because I think that something that we really value is making this like a symbiotic process where like we as the editors get a lot out of editing the pieces and publishing and putting it together and having that be a part of our leadership development, but also we want to make sure that the writers get a lot out of the publication. So I think that we, prioritize creating quality works that can be published. I also think it's really nice for professional development because even just the community we have in the law review, I know that like some of my experiences have been, I've given given advice to younger students, and younger students have given advice to each other. And I think that like environment of like competitiveness, but also collaboration is really helpful. But I think that we want to make sure that the pieces that we're publishing are quality, so that like if someone wants to submit a writing sample to a graduate school, a law school, a PhD application, or for a job, they feel as if whatever they publish within the publication is something that is tenable for their application. I also think that we want to make sure that students read about legal topics that might not be fit for publication at the larger, law review, like a real law review at a law school. So I know that one of my favorite pieces that I did this year was about, it's like the proposition of owning the moon and what the legal avenues of like moon colonization or the potential privatization of territory and land on the moon could look like. It was a very analytical paper. I think it was written by someone who does, pre-law work as well as like more scientific work in their undergraduate institution. And I think it's really interesting because it's challenges the students that, are writing the pieces, but when we're editing it, it's very collaborative and like all of us are, young people. So I think that we, give the creative latitude to our authors, but then we also match that with like quality editing so like they feel as if they can be their most authentic, students, but also create quality works they can bring elsewhere.
Yeah, so for Dewpoint, one thing I've been trying to prioritize this year is obviously I still really enjoy more traditional forms of fiction and poetry, but I've been trying to bring in more experimental pieces, which a lot of times that can fall under poetry, but I think trying to incorporate more experimental work and similar to Prism, I really wanted authenticity in a lot of the pieces and trying to find works that have a very distinct voice was really important to me for a focus for Dewpoint.
So in in the fall for Jolly, we have an unthemed issue. And then after we get everybody together and the papers we're about to publish, I essentially make the theme. And the theme last fall was empathy beyond sympathy, rediscovering humanity. And that is a very important message for me because I feel like it is very common to feel for someone rather than feel with someone. And although we in general cannot like understand what others may go through, I think it is so important to put ourselves in other people's shoes, so that we can go along a path together. For example, I feel like there's a gap between researchers and practitioners in the field of education. Researchers are like, here's my research. And practitioners like, great, but I have like all these other issues to think about. And it was not until I stepped into a K to 12 environment where I went, oh crap, this is not a linear situation here. It's very complex. And then I thought to myself, are researchers listening to teachers empathetically and vice versa? And so the message for me is important to think about doing it together and understand each other. Yes.
Those were so many different answers, and I feel like for them to all be on such different levels, they coincided with each other very well. I'm very interested about the article that you mentioned, Bella, about the moon. I feel like that's so like that's very unexpected for me since you're a law review. I feel like that's very interesting. I would love to read it sometime. So next up, I wanted to ask how you deal with succession within your journal. Do you currently have a system set in place for who's taking over, or is there like a way that you wish that you could perform a succession?
Um, we've tried to organize as much as possible. I don't know if this is relevant for the other journals on this panel, but I know that we've had a lot of transformation within how our journals organized, like before COVID, during COVID, and then after COVID. We only recently became a journal that was back to in-person operation just because not in person made a lot of sense for people's schedules. And so we prolonged what was, status quo under COVID for a couple of more years. But we have bylaws that we like crystallized in the Constitution. We've amended the Constitution based on like a democratic vote on the board, but I would like to see it like with everyone that we work with on our staff. And then we also have an application process, and there's like if someone wants to retain their role, they can just like sign on to do that. But everyone else, regardless of whether you've been in the publication before or not, can apply to really whatever role. And then we evaluate all the applications in a couple of different rounds, and we try to be as democratic as possible. But I think that there definitely has been some things in the past that haven't seemed that democratic, but I think for the most part, we're if we haven't been great in the past, we're getting better. And I think that having the framework that we do has worked in the past.
Right. So for the Prism, what we do is our teachers will reach out to the student body and ask if anybody's interested in taking on the Prism. And then people who are interested will put in their applications, and the department will look at those applications and see who has the like the most merit for the task. So really secession is in the hands of our administration and not like the students.
So for Dewpoint, Dewpoint is like basically housed within Sigma Tau Delta, which is the International English Honor Society. So, and that's like our chapter's literary magazine. But we have been struggling a little bit with like trying to get our membership numbers up. So normally the process for succession would look like, somebody would be interested in working with Dewpoint, and then the current editor would work with that person and mentor them and kind of teach them everything. But because we've been struggling a little bit with membership, it's been hard to like find people to do the job. So I think part of our plan for next year is definitely going to be like finding new people to bring into the fold so that we can have like a wider array of options for people to take on the mantle.
For us, like I said, Jolly is a class, so it just really depends on who is registered. And typically it's the first day of class and we just go, who want to do what? But we have 3 positions as leaders, so principal, editor, managing editor, and production editor, and those 3 are usually reserved for PhD students, whereas other positions are for anyone who wants it. So, yeah.
Have I actually heard of anybody else's journal being a class? When I was an undergrad, my journal was also a class. I feel like that's really interesting. So next up, I was wondering what discipline looks like for you all throughout your journals. Is that something like more sticking to deadlines and routines, or is it, I know a lot of you are saying that you're dealing with like more virtual, so I was wondering like what that looks like for you.
So because Prism is printed primarily, we do have deadlines, but we set the deadlines very well ahead of when we need to print it, just in case we run into any issues. And so we work with our readers as well as administration to determine when we need things done. Like, for example, when do we need every single submission in for consideration? And when do we need like yes, no, maybe? And then we begin to narrow it down. And then we have like, of course, our print deadlines to make sure that we have it by the time we do our Prism launch, because we do like a Prism launch party. And so that is when people read their workout, and then we give out copies of the Prism physical.
Sticking to deadlines, sometimes it's like a go with the flow type over here, and sometimes it's like strict. I feel like running a journal is like running a theater production. You just never know what is going to happen. So you may just need to improvise. We do have transition documents and timelines from past editorial boards that give us like, okay, this is where we need to be pushing it. This is where we can be relaxed a little bit. But every issue is unique in its circumstances.
Yeah, it's a lot of sticking to deadlines and just, making sure to stay on top of it. Dewpoint is digital, so, it's pretty flexible in terms of deadlines, and if I have to push an issue back, it's not a huge problem. I feel like also with discipline has been trying to like maintain online presence with Dewpoint with things like Instagram and like social media, getting stuff out and emails. That's been like a big part of staying on top of the journal for me.
You guys, I just wanted to ask right quick, has anybody else been dealing with like submitting to social media to like get the word out about your journals? Yeah.
Yes, so
Right.
that is a challenge because, for example, when we started working together on Prism, we were focused on emailing the entire school to see who was interested. And so I would ask my classmates, I'm like, did you guys get an email from Prism? And they're like, we don't look at our emails. And so I was like, well, please look. We need to have something by the end of the year. Um, so that's difficult. And also, even though our school has several social media accounts for each department, they have art department, English department, all that. We even have Prism magazine on Instagram. Students, it's very hard to get students to engage with that content. And so one of my challenges was trying to get people to engage with Prism on social media and via the email. So I spent a lot of time physically campaigning in order to get people interested in submitting to the Prism and seeing it as a way for them to have a creative voice.
Thank you for that. Did anybody else want to answer about the social media before we moved on, or is that right?
Um, Once we got the word out to like the student body just face to face, we actually got like a lot of like response from the English department Instagram. We heard from like a lot of people like, oh, we came to the launch party because we saw it on the English department Instagram. And that was like really nice because like finally people were like, oh, like this magazine, we didn't really know about it before, but now we're like, yes. And it was really nice to see.
We pretty much had to do a Prism literary magazine revival because even some people in our like administrative building did not know that the magazine even existed. So we've kind of had to pretty much like revive it and spread the word through our student body.
It does really help when you get like a university account to like repost. If you got like the university or like the department, somebody who has like a lot of followers already, that does help a lot. So I definitely understand that. So next up, I was wondering how you contribute to your surrounding community throughout your journal, whether that be like you publish something about them in there or you're like out physically doing work. Like I was just wondering what that looks like for you.
So Jolly has a scholar speak out portion where researchers and practitioners can, and the voices from the field section where they can just talk about what's going on right now. How are they feeling right now? And what research is backing it up? And what, like, basically kind of venting, but professionally. That's what we provide for them. As well. And we also reach out to the community, especially because we have a children and young adult section, and our CYAL editor reached out to teachers and students for them to review books for us.
So we did a lot of like physical campaigning. So we would go to buildings and put old copies of Prism there where people would be sitting. I would talk about it in my different classes. Because I was taking so many different types of classes, like art classes, literature classes, etc. I would make sure that we got voices from people in different majors. So it was more like physical campaigning to get the initial interest. And then later on, like a more social media and email focused type of campaigning.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. For
Right.
Dewpoint, it was pretty similar. I would go out to a lot of the buildings on campus and hang up flyers, just trying to raise awareness because a lot of people also didn't know that Dewpoint existed. And so just trying to get people to know about it. I would talk in classes. There's a lot of like writing centered clubs on campus at Alabama. So I would like go to those and just get in like the group me chats and tell people about it, that submissions were open, things like that.
Yeah. I would echoing the same sentiment. There's a lot of publications at Georgetown that are super similar. Like we have one that's dedicated to international relations. We have a couple of those. We also have like some like history, political science, philosophy ones. So I think that like publicizing ourselves to the university is probably our biggest opportunity for growth. I think that we just need to lean into the spaces that we already have established on campus, as well as like, taking the initiative to enter group me's or to petition on campus, like a lot of other clubs. We haven't really had a problem with attracting submissions. So I think that that has disincentivized us from really getting out there into the community. But again, like I think that we could be very, impactful and, provide a good space for people. So I think that it's definitely room for growth, but something that we're working on.
Thank you for those answers. So we're on our second to last questions now. I was wondering what your favorite part is about working with your journal or on your journal.
So I loved the reading meetings that we would have where we would get an influx of submissions and then we would call for students to read and then give feedback. And I thought those were the most helpful because I could kind of see the prism being formed at that time and the what the works would look like inside and how the students were responding to their peers' work. And so I just really loved basically community feedback.
And I really enjoyed how it like it wasn't just like the English majors or the creative writing minors that were like submitting. It was like the science majors or the math people. And it was just like it was really nice to see all these like diverse different, you know, departments and different majors like come together and like submit and like have a creative outlet.
I, I think that my favorite thing about being on the journal is working with the executive team that we have because so many of us have been a part of the organization for years. But I think more than that would be the submissions that we have and how creative some of the thinkers that are writing for our publication are. I've learned so much about the law through other people, through this publication, and I really think that that's a service to me. It's a service to everyone else reading it. So I think that just the opportunity to learn about concepts that you wouldn't hear in the classroom has been great.
Yeah, it's been really rewarding to kind of revamp Dewpoint. There's a lot of work to be done when I was selected to be editor, and so it's been tough, but like it's been a really enjoyable experience to find the different parts of the publication that need to be worked on and then go out and do those things. Also working with faculty, since I don't have any assistant editors or anything like that. I have been much more involved with like working with the executive team and then faculty because of that. And obviously I do love reading the submissions. It's really wonderful just to see like the different kinds of writing that are coming out of Alabama. And it's just, it's incredible and it's wonderful to put it all together and have that final product.
For me, I have always loved planning. So this whole thing is just plan, plan, plan. Like I love planning. I love planning. So we have the two issues, but then we also plan for the conference that we have every spring. And we also plan for the pre-conference get together. Those are the things I really like because I love being stressed out and then it goes through and I go, yes, it worked out. It's great. It's amazing. And then we have a lot of potlucks here. I don't know about you guys, but we love to eat. And we have so many people from different cultures. So we have potlucks every semester. So yeah, it's just community. It's amazing. It's awesome.
Those all sound like great parts of the journal. Thank you for those as well. And our final question today is, what's the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome at your journal? And if you had to handle it again, would you handle it the same way, or would you do something differently?
Um, so the biggest challenge on my journal is making sure the editors do their work when they say they're going to do it, or getting an editor to respond to, particularly the assistant editors, actually, because we have line, assistant, managing, and then editor-in-chief. But I think that making sure that people are conscientious about the emails that they receive and, act on, I guess, the agreement that they made to be an editor for our organization. But I would say that that issue is across the board, regardless of how, high up you are in the organization. I think that everyone struggles at some point or another, some more frequently than other, to meet their deadlines. And we are, creatively and organically working on ways to solve that issue. I don't think it's ever going to be solved, but I think that, leveraging the platforms that we have, maybe using text instead of Slack, because a lot of people don't check their Slack. All of those things have been, tried. So I think that moving forward, we're just going to continue doing what we're doing, and hopefully something sticks.
Yeah, I think definitely formatting was the most difficult thing, because a lot of us now, for our university, they prioritize Google Suite. And so essentially we had formatted the Prism in Google Suite and then had to make the rough transition to Microsoft Word. And so that threw everything off kilter. So now we have learned the hard way to just make the whole thing in Word and not even try to kind of wrestle with anything Google Suite related when it comes to the final edition of Prism magazine.
For Dewpoint, I think the biggest challenge was like the transition when I became editor, because I had not used WordPress before. So I had to learn how to use WordPress, and thankfully the website was like already there, so I didn't have to like make it from scratch. But that was challenging for like my first issue, because that took me a long time to get it out. But that was the biggest hurdle. And for things that we're working on currently, like I touched on earlier, just, trying to get more people involved is definitely the biggest thing.
For this year, I'm a very personal person, like personable, yeah. And I think I have to set boundaries and have a line between personal and academic work, because sometimes, well, it happened, it's just blurred, and people, I don't know how to say it, like people will look at you as a friend and not like, I'm trying to get stuff done. You know what I'm saying? And that has happened to me last semester. A lot of things happened last semester. And I really have to work on that. And I think everyone have to work on that, because, working with people, it can be an interesting situation. And the hardest thing though was last Christmas break, almost Christmas break, one of our editors left, and they were in charge of the final steps of the publication. And so I was in New York City around Christmas Eve, answering emails, doing all these things, and not asking for help, because I'm also not a person that asks for help, especially during Christmas break. It's like a magical time. So I think I would have asked for help if it ever happened like that again. But then do I? Because I don't want to bother anybody. That's just me.
No, these are all such valid concerns. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank you all again for participating with us today and giving us your time. I really appreciated hearing all the different perspectives and points of views from all of your journals. Thank you so much for participating. I just wanted to make sure that there weren't any questions from the audience before we left.
Sorry, I don't see any questions from the audience, but this has been great. I guess we maybe have time for one quick question. One thing that was on my mind, we're talking about impact, And there are a lot of different ways of thinking about that. And one of those ways is like measuring your impact. So just curious if any of you are tracking anything like, analytics, downloads, citations, or other kinds of impact. Those are just a couple examples. Anybody like doing reports to faculty or administrators about the impact of your journal, anything like that?
We haven't done that, but I know that we can. And the reason being is that we receive, I feel like a lot of like quantifying impact is something that people do for like grants and other like forms of funding. We haven't had an issue with that because we're funded by the university, like through their student organization council. So we could easily pivot if we needed to. We just haven't found the utility for that yet, but we might.
Right. So we haven't done any formal reports or anything, but we do keep all of the records of who submitted and how many submissions we received in each year for Prism. And we also keep like an archive of the old Prism editions. And so far, this edition is the largest one we've had. So we've received the most submissions ever. And I think that it's a testament to the amount of campaigning that was done. And so I think that it's a lesson for the university on the need for community publishing, as well as the need for the magazine itself to reach out to the community to get them to submit to Prism.
Yeah, Dewpoint is really similar. I can see like, the analytics and how many people are visiting our page. And we have had like a pretty significant increase in the past year. So I haven't done any formal reports for faculty or anything like that, but that is a good idea and something that I might start doing. So yeah.
Great, awesome.
And oh yeah, go for
Oh,
it.
go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, same. That's what I'm trying to say. Same. We don't do any reporting, but I can also see on Scholastica of everything. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been great conversation. Thank you all very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it. And thanks, Maiya. Great job moderating.